Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Argentina Brief Weekly Wrap-Up. It's Sunday, April 19th, so let's get straight into it. First, inflation. March came in hotter than expected at 3.4% month over month, the highest reading in a year. President Milei acknowledged publicly that the data was bad and that inflation overall repulses him. Transport and education drove the spike, which was heavily impacted by the conflict in the Middle East, which pushed up global oil prices. But the economy minister, Luis Caputo, struck a much more optimistic tone this week, saying the country has entered already a virtuous cycle. He predicted that the best 18 to 20 months Argentina has ever seen, if the government stays the course, are coming up. And he attributed the recent acceleration of inflation to a sharp drop in money demand during last year's electoral cycle, not due to excess money supply. He expects an important deceleration starting in April and rejected any trade-off between inflation and economic growth. Okay, so we're back. For those of you watching the video, you can tell that I've changed my gear. I'm wearing a Boca Juniors shirt to mark that we just beat River Plate 1-0 at the Monumental Stadium. So a big win for us, but let's get back to the Argentina brief. So the second headline is that Argentina got the staff-level green light from the IMF in the second review of its $20 billion program, unlocking around $1 billion that'll come into the central bank reserves. Argentina also agreed to boost net reserves by $8 billion this year through foreign exchange purchases, while monetary policy will shift towards quarterly targets to reduce interest rate volatility. The IMF also praised the government for passing major reforms and bills in recent months, including the 2026 budget, the fiscal innocence law, and the labor reform, which all factored into the fund's positive assessment of the program so far. Third, Milei landed in the Middle East for his third official visit to Israel. He prayed at the Western Wall, met Prime Minister Netanyahu, and strongly backed the U.S.-Israel campaign against Iran, calling it the right thing to do. Milei also labeled both countries brothers in suffering, recalling the terrorist attacks against the Israeli embassy and the Jewish center AMIA in Buenos Aires. And both leaders launched the Isaac Accords to expand political, economic, and strategic ties between Israel and Latin America. They also signed agreements on direct flights, security, AI, and technology cooperation as a whole. Milei is set to become the first foreign head of state to light a torch at Israel's 78th Independence Day ceremony, and the trip underscored Argentina's deepening ties with Israel, with Milei consistently talking about shared Judeo-Christian values. The Milei administration has also officially cataloged Hamas and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as terrorist organizations. And back to domestic affairs. With the electoral turmoil in the rearview mirror, major banks have started cutting mortgage rates in recent weeks. Rates are now more attractive, with some banks offering 7.5% plus inflation indexation in a move that could mark the start of a gradual reactivation in housing credit. Overall, it should be said, however, that personal loans are still very high in terms of NPLs, that is non-performing loans. So we'll have to see how the situation evolves. And on that note, we had official wage data released last week from the Index Statistics Bureau, and salaries are losing out to inflation. That happened yet again in February, in another warning sign for Milei. Since he took office, private sector formal jobs have lost out against price hikes, and we'll have to see how that metric evolves going into next year's presidential elections. And fifth, it's not exactly Argentina related, but I think it's worth noting to show just how much human talent there is in Argentina. Guillermo Rauch of Vercel, the digital infrastructure platform that powers leading AI applications like Meta.ai and Claude, told me in an interview for Bloomberg Linea that his San Francisco-based company is preparing for an IPO and that it should be next year. The last valuation for his company was $9.3 billion, and it could be one of the biggest IPOs in 2027. And finally, the big picture. Another interview that I did this week was with Jason Markzak from the Atlantic Council. The Washington think tank sees the country at a historic turning point. Macro conditions are the best in years, he said, but foreign capital is still waiting to confirm that there won't be a slip back to the populist interventionism that has derailed previous reform attempts under Macri. The key message was that sustained success for Argentina will depend on consistent and clear rules. That's your Argentina brief for the week. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next weekend.